the bioethical concern that I have chosen to delve deeper into is vaccines. And I chose vaccines because within the last decade or so, there has been a prevalence of anti vaccination parents that are choosing to not vaccinate their kids. So, why are vaccines a bioethical concern? Well, the lack of vaccines puts the lives of everyone around you at risk when just a few people don't get the vaccine. This is because we risk losing the herd immunity that we have created. And an article published by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Sciences kind of goes into depth of what vaccines do and how they give the community herd immunity. Herd immunity is just essentially enough of the population is vaccinated so that there isn't a risk of the disease, an outbreak of the disease, if the disease somehow gets brought into the community or to the United States through people traveling to and from the United States carrying these diseases. With herd immunity, we eliminate that risk. And we created herd immunity through vaccines because we have eradicated the diseases at a high enough percentage that it's not even in the U.S. anymore for diseases like smallpox, polio, and the measles. In a FarmJet article, they state that 10% of the nation's children are not receiving vaccines, which will lead to a reoccurrence of diseases like smallpox and polio and measles that we have worked so hard over the last decades to completely eradicate. And Professor Salandrolo, he's a professor at the University of Washington, and he has written a lot of articles on U.S. health. He states that because these people haven't seen the debilitating effects of the diseases, that we've built complacency towards the disease and what it can really do to our community and those around us that cannot get vaccinated for medical reasons. So, why are parents choosing to not vaccinate? There are a couple things. Beliefs is the first thing that I'm going to cover. The first main thing I want to talk about is the parents' lack of belief in the science behind vaccines. So the main thing is that they believe that pharmaceutical companies, and this is according to an article published by Healthline in 2017, and they cited the National Center for Biotechnology Information, a report that they came out with. Healthline discussed it, and they discussed a lot of the most common reasons that parents are choosing to not vaccinate their kids. And one of them was the pharmaceutical companies and what they're putting into the vaccines. The parents don't believe is in the best interest of their kids, and they believe that these companies are strictly in it to make a profit, and they don't care about what the consequences of the ingredients that they're putting in their vaccines are to the children receiving them. Another thing that falls under the lack of belief in science and the vaccines is parents believe that the vaccine will cause a milder form of the disease and not completely protect you from it. And then you have the category of religious beliefs. In an article released by New York Times in 2019, they discussed religious exemptions as a reason for anti-vaccination, and they state that none of the world's major religions are against vaccinations. So that led the National Center for Biotechnology Information to stating that many states do allow religious exemptions, but many of these major world religions around the world don't even have a reason to be against vaccinations. Another reason is there's too much risk. A lot of parents believe that the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella virus vaccine will give their kid autism, but a Danish study showed that there's absolutely no correlation, and they strongly support vaccines, and specifically the MMR vaccine. So in 2018, the CDC released a report explaining how vaccines work. So basically, the dosage goes into your body, and it's a smaller dosage of the antigen or disease, and it introduces our body to the disease. And then our body works to produce antibodies to fight off the disease. And the way our immune system works is when it sees an antigen, even if it's in this lower dose, later on when it sees it again, the immune system is quicker to respond and fight off it. So who are the stakeholders in this issue? Doctors, government officials, and general public. And they all kind of have different views, but they all are within the same realm. The doctor's concern is the lack of vaccinations will lead to a prevalence of these debilitating diseases, and it's just gonna skyrocket the healthcare industry, and not in a good way. There's just going to be an outbreak of these diseases, and then that's where the government officials come in, because when there is an outbreak of a disease, it becomes a public health issue, which is something the government has to control. And they need to figure out whether laws need to be put in place for these people to have to get their vaccines. And then the general public's concern is simply that their well-being is just at risk, because again, we risk losing herd immunity. So those that can't get vaccinated for medical reasons are at a higher risk because of this 10% of the population the children population that isn't getting vaccinated. It really can lead to a reoccurrence of these diseases. So like I said, overall, they all fall into the same realm of the well-being of the public, and just the need to keep those who medically cannot get their vaccines safe.